Good afternoon, Periscope. How are you this Monday? It's a beautiful day outside. I'm here in the Houston, Texas area, so I don't know if you're in the New York City area, what area you are in, but it's beautiful out here. I decided to sit outside, listen to the birds, listen to the planes. I'm even hearing the sirens. But I just decided to sit out here and enjoy the weather. Well, this broadcast is titled, My Children, My Children, My Children. Whoa, my children. Hello, everyone that's coming on. Welcome, welcome. I want to welcome you for joining us. And I guess there's more that's going to come on. But if you don't and you're going to miss this actual broadcast about my children, you can replay it. But I want to thank you for coming on. I'm trying to stop saying "aw" so much. I believe it or not, and believe it, I am a national speaker, national and international speaker. So I shouldn't be saying that much. But I want to talk about our children. I want to talk about the ups and downs we have about our children. I think I said that I was going to make a video about our children. And I'm going to get more in depth because everyone has problems with their children. But what I think we don't remember, that we were children too. And I have a saying, and I might have said this before, about the root that creates the fruit. Hello, everyone. How are you? Thank you for coming on. Welcome. Send me some hearts. Let me know that you're watching and you're kind of enjoying the broadcast as you hear little tidbits about our children. Say hello. I don't know if you can chat. If you can chat, you can, but say hello. So what I was saying is that we have issues with our children. And as I said before, that we were children one time too. When we see children acting up, they're speaking in volumes. We speak in volumes. And let me explain what that means. The volume, there's a saying. Let me go back a little. There's a saying about when God speaks. God speaks in a soft voice. But when things become chaotic and crazy, that's when God is speaking in a loudspeaker. And what we see when people act up, our children act up, what are they really saying? Are they speaking in volumes? The more they behave, that's saying, okay, all is well. But now when they act out and they act up, what are they saying? They're saying something is wrong. But what we do, we actually see the outer actions, as I always say, instead of what they're saying inside of themselves. I have a daughter that I always I like to use as an example, that we clash, we truly clash. But it's because a lot of times we clash is because I'm seeing myself. And children, even yourself, because you were once a child, learn from behavior. We call it learned behavior. Now, they could have learned it from you or dad. But it's always, and if you didn't raise your children, or if you weren't raised by your mom and dad, you were raised by the caretaker. And you learned from the caretaker. But it doesn't stop you from having some type of personality trait from your parents. You could never been raised by your parents. And, I remember, I think it was Oprah that said it, that she wasn't raised by her mom and her grandma. She was raised by her grandma, but she had some traits of her mom. So it's called generational. And this is how I break down generational. Generational behaviors turns into generational cycles. And now it turns into generational curse or generational blessings. Because we don't pick up all bad, we pick up good, too, from who we're raised by. When we see our children, I had this deep conversation with a friend of mine about her child not going out to look for a job, and she didn't know what to do with her. She didn't know what it is that she can do, and she was just tired. So her solution was get out, get out, get out, get out, get out. But I had the honor and the privilege of actually, and I've spoke to her child before, and she's hard. The girl is hard. And she put me in mind of my own daughter. She's very hard. But behind that hardness, I was actually seeing a cry out for help. And how many of us can say we hide behind what we're feeling? The children is saying the same thing too, and it's what they're taught. I teach something in parenting called stages of love. And from birth to 4 years old, children need that unconditional, at all times they need unconditional love, but they need it even extra. You have to hug them, you have to hold them, you got to squeeze them, all those different things. You just have to give them that love to know that they're wanted. You know what you're doing? You're actually imparting in them the ego to know who they are, and that self-love. Because it is said, and it's true, that if they don't get that from birth to 4 years old, because they're in their, we're going to call it concrete thinking. That's that black and white thinking. They don't see nothing else but black and white. If we don't give them that, now you're looking at the prostitute, you're looking at the con artist, you're looking at the manipulator. They will manipulate their way through everything that they do. They will con their way through everything that they do. Even myself. And I love my girl Bridget Washington. She'll tell you, I'll keep it real. I was one of the biggest manipulators out there. I was one of the, and yeah, I'm not ashamed to say it, I prostitute. Because I didn't have that love, and I'm not blaming anyone. Don't get me wrong. I am not blaming anyone for what. Hey, Blessed for Life joined. How are you? Thank you for coming on. Welcome, welcome. Send me some hearts. Welcome. I'm not going to tell anyone to go ahead and share and invite, because that's up to you. I don't want to tell you what to do. And if you've been watching my broadcast, I'm the type of person, I'm not going to tell you what to do, because if you're really feeling this, you're going to send it to others. Okay. And I watch the big dogs and they're like, they don't really do that. But so let's get back to what I was saying. And what I was explaining is that I didn't have that love. I didn't know how to receive love because love was not given to me. So I was neglected as a child. I was, abandoned. So guess what? Now I became myself. I now became that product of what society said that I would turn out to be. And yes, I was that prostitute. I was that stripper. And I went out there and I looked for love, or I manipulated my way through love in all the wrong places. Now, that's birth to 4 years old. That's when they do not receive the love that they're supposed to get. Now, let's say they did receive the love they're supposed to get. Now they go to 5 to 7. We're talking about stages of love, how children receive love. This is why even yourself, if you see yourself somewhere in this is why you're going through what you go through. And it's hard for you to get out of these particular stages because you have not been shown love, and you now go out there and look for the love in the way you feel you need it. And this is what we're seeing in our children. What we do is go through our stages, and then we pass it on to our children, and we now sit up here and say, my child won't do this, my child won't do that. But we didn't know how to administrate it correctly to the child. And we're seeing what? What did I say earlier? Generational behaviors, generational cycles that turns into generational curse or blessings. Okay, so now let's hit 5 to 7 years old. At 5 to 7 years old, they're supposed to be learning pleasing others. And they receive the affirmation. They are now taught how to be manageable. They're now taught different things on how to, please others. Yes, blessed for life. Yes, why we don't think about these things. These are things we don't think about because we're not taught this. But I am here to set the record straight, and I'm going to have more classes like this. I'm a licensed parenting instructor. I'm a practice psychologist. I practice and say psychology, and I sit under a life coach because I had to do these things to change myself. Hey, I hope we're all Christians here. If you're not, hey, you want to maybe check out our lifestyle and our belief. Okay. But when we get into the Christian world, we don't, and I'm going to get back to 5 to 7 years old, but what it is that we miss teaching and teaching in this area. So I, as a pastor, actually say, I'm not going to leave this out to the people that sit up under me, because you got to know when the enemy is attacking you and why it's attacking you and why it's attacking you in that area. So let's talk about 5 to 7 years old. So 5 to 7 years old, when you're 5 to 7 years old and you're learning how to please others, but remember, this has actually maybe stopped. No one taught you how to please others. No one taught you gratitude. No one taught you how to actually celebrate yourself. Guess what you do now? You're now looking at the enablers, the codependents. Let's put these two people together. Birth to 4 years old, the prostitute, the con artist, the manipulator, the drug addict, the drug dealer. They're looking for love. They're fitting in these different things. The alcoholic. They're fitting in these things because they've missed it. And with them missing it, now they want something to replace it. So they do these things. 5 to 7 year olds say, I missed out on that. I'm now grown up. It doesn't stop you from growing because your birthday is going to come every year. But now you're grown up. And then now you have, let's break it down, as we would say in Ebonics, baby daddy living with baby mama. Baby mama taking care of baby daddy. Why? Because she now feel a sense of belonging, and she feel that she needs to please that man, or that man feels that I need to please her. Why is that? Because something was missing through my stages of love. My stages of love has a missing piece in it. And we go and we repeat cycles. Like I said, these now are the concrete thinking. Concrete mean black and white. You see everything in black and white. When you get with these particular people, like the codependents, the enabler, you will never be able to tell that woman to leave that man because he's not doing right. Why? Because she see everything in black and white. That's it. He loved me. He's not providing, but he's providing what it is that she's missing. Now, the con artist, why are you selling drugs? Why are you prostituting? I told somebody that it was to the point I want to be a porno star. Can we be real? Because I took the false sense of sex as intimacy. As long as someone was touching me, that feeling. So I now got addicted and I became a nymphomaniac. So from masturbation, and we're going to be real with it. It's time for us to come out and say what our problem was and what we had to do to get healed. So now when we look at our children, you're like, my children, my children, my children. Instead of us looking at the outside of our children, what are the patterns that our children are saying that we have? We have a tendency, yes, thank you. We have a tendency of forgetting where we came from. When I look at my daughter and I look at the things that she do, I have patience with her because God have patience with us. And I look at what she does, but I don't judge what she do. Because whatever her madness is that she's going through, that she has to now walk out of, all I can do is pray. Because we are good stewards over our children. We don't rule their lives, but we can pray for their life. Now, if they're underage, you set standards and stability. You have to set structure for their life. But if your life is out of order, you cannot help that child and be placing it in order. Because what they are sponge. Remember I said concrete thinking. They're black and white. So they're absorbing what they're getting. When do concrete thinking stop? It stopped from birth to 15 years old. Let me change that. 11. I believe it's 11. I have to look at my notes. I'm sorry. But I think it's from 11 or 15. Double check that, because we're going to keep on repeating this, and we're going to get this right. But the concrete thinking stop, and then now they go through the gray areas. But the gray areas become contaminated, and this is why we see different beliefs, different ways of acting out those gray areas, because it's been tainted. And we see life so warped and different because the growth had stopped. Once you go through a tragedy, let's go back now, birth to 4 years old. Let's talk about myself. And I like to use myself as an example, because no one will say I'm talking about anyone. I was molested, and I talked about that at a toddler. Then I was molested again at 9. Then I was raped at 13. Now, I was going through my concrete thinking. The reason why it took me so long, even when we walk in the body of Christ, we keep on stumbling and going through the same thing, is because I went through a tragedy, a turmoil, and that kept on connecting to my life. We call it familiar spirits. We call it that familiar that knows you. So my root that was growing from the root that made me, that turned into a fruit, bared bad fruits. And it had to drop off of me. But it didn't drop off of me easily. It had to drop off of me the hard way. See, I got to the point that I got tired, sick and tired of being sick and tired. Either I was going to live or I was going to die. I would say a repeated, I'm trying to think, but I was a repeated suicidal person. I would try to commit suicide in every way. I would cut my wrists. I would cut myself. Even when I was with a person, I would cut myself up just to get attention. And then to the point, it wasn't no more of getting attention. It was to stop the voices in my head from talking to me. Oh yeah, we need to talk about that. You have to understand that your children, once again, is speaking in volumes. What is it that they are saying? Because what is it that's talking to them? They're not hearing mom and dad. They're not hearing grandma. They're not hearing that teacher. They're hearing what has been implanted inside them. Molestation. Let's go back to molestation and rape. We're human beings having, we're spiritual beings having human experiences. Let me say that again. We're spiritual beings because we were first spirit having human experiences. The experiences that we're having, once it's tainted, we have a soul. When things connect to our soul and becomes and contaminated, take us off track and was not what we was not ready for, it now take us down a road that we now have to learn how to come out on our own or with the help of God. So we have so much work to do. So next time, and I want to leave you with this because I don't want to make it too long. I want to come back. I want you to be able to grasp on to what I'm saying, what you just learned, and what it is that you need to do to understand your child. The first thing to do to understand your child is to understand yourself. if that child is actually pushing you to that peak, my children. You see how I'm making my, like, ooh, and that's how I look with my daughter. I want to, ooh. But I sit back and I say, okay, God, what is it I'm supposed to be seeing? Sometimes I pass the test. Sometimes I don't. I'll be honest, I don't. But when I do sit back and get my mind back, get my brain back, get my whole mind back, I sit back and I analyze it and I say, okay, is it really her or is it really me? What am I seeing in myself? A lot of times, us Christians, you Christians out there, it's what you're doing to God. When I see someone act up around me, I take a step back and say, how am I acting up around God? And that's for you Christians that's going through it with your children. For the ones that, for y'all that's not going through it with you're not a Christian, see what you're doing to act up around yourself. Are you really being true to yourself? Are you really being true to your calling and who you are? Because your children is saying a lot to you. I remember speaking to a friend, and I'm going to end with that. I remember speaking to a friend, and she said every time her household is out of order and out of whack, she goes back and check on herself. How many times do we do that? How many times we need to go check on ourselves? My children, my children, my children. My children, our children is our mirror. They are a mirror image. Like I have to sit here and look in this camera and see myself. See beyond yourself. Go in the mirror and look at who you really are. And see if you like what you see. And if you don't, you might need to correct some stuff. And if you do, kudos to you. But when you see your children acting up, you see in the mirror. What can you do with that mirror? I love you all, and I hope you enjoy this. Please send me some hearts to say this bless you. And I'll see you on the next broadcast. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.